And we're live.
And alive.
Yeah, which is a good thing. And we're going to begin this. This is the What If episode, and we're beginning it with what if Aubrey wears a mask? And the first answer to the question is that the mask feature on Facebook Live doesn't know what to do with her.
Which is kind of funny if you think about it, given how much the algorithms have been exposed to mask pictures at this point. It's doing pretty good. It's only a little fluttery. But I do appreciate it. I hope you guys can hear me through the mask. Should we tell them why I'm wearing a mask?
Absolutely.
So,
because it's part of the what if story.
It is. Maybe you should start with the what if story.
No, you go.
The what if Aubrey's already left the house story.
Yeah.
So, long story short, I cat sat over the weekend for a client of mine, which meant I was in someone else's house. Hi, Cindy. For the weekend. And she wasn't there, but there were two cats there, and, they seem healthy, but we just don't know what that actually means. So, not even so much out of fear. It just seemed appropriate, inside of everything that's gone on in terms of how careful we've been, how many precautions we've taken. I just got home and I was like, you know what? I think I just need to wear a mask in the common area. And I'll be gone for quite a few weekends coming up. And so this may be the new mode of interacting in the house for a little while, because I think what I've discovered in this process is there's a whole lot of arguing we could do about the right or wrong.
Mm-hmm.
But at the end of the day, the thing that ends up supporting our immune systems the most is feeling comfortable and confident and feeling safe.
Mm-hmm.
And so really, while I'm fairly confident I'm fine and I'm not that concerned, taking an extra step around someone that I care about just to bring that vigilance level down inside the house overall actually just felt really appropriate. Hence the mask.
Another piece related to that is that we are all on so much information overload and decision-making overload and other forms of cognitive overload that too is a form of stress and a negative impact on immune systems. And so decisions that are simple, replicable, and that are good training for other moments, right? That's one of the things that you said, just getting used to having the mask on and feeling what it's like and remembering to put it on and all of that kind of stuff. There's a lot of other gains to the immune system that are not necessarily about whether you have something I have to worry about or vice versa.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah, and in another great way,
can you all be a little further away from
Cindy,
the camera?
We can go a little further away. Is that better? I think she's trying to help us enforce social distancing.
We can be further away, but we can't read the comments once we're further away.
This is true, because apparently my eyes change with the glasses. I can't see anything with them. But back to that, even I've actually taken it on as a little bit of Black Lodge or warrior training. Again, whether I have it or not, it doesn't matter. But the in an environment where so many of my access to stimulation and so many of my access to how I would normally be, employing sobriety and being awake, aware, and alert in the rest of the world, this is actually a way to keep that training up, because it's what's relevant to the environment I'm in.
Right. So the what if started, here's another layer to it. It started with the question of what if you did the grocery shopping for us instead of someone else dropping it off and you doing the disinfecting protocol that we have, UV light and this, that, and the other. But what I was struck by is that another reason for decisions that we can make and then just live with is that things are speeding up. It wasn't just what if you go to the grocery store. It's what if you go to the grocery store, and what if you go take care of these cats this weekend, and what if you go up for a work weekend this weekend, and what if you need to go to the grocery store again in between those And now the what ifs cascade on each other so much that none of them is a discrete question anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's actually another form of stress to try and answer them all at their specific level.
Mm-hmm.
And it's much more effective, useful, calming to find solutions that spread across a variety of things.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I described it as rather than doing the constant mental calculus that comes along with even inside of our intimate relationships. Oh shoot, where have I been exposed recently? I just don't need to worry about that. And to the extent that I might be going out for an extended period of time in the desert for a couple of weeks in a month or so, I'm even looking at what do I need to do in this environment to make sure that I'm taking care of myself for that really, really strenuous period of time.
Mm-hmm.
And, in some ways it just makes it again, it's not about what my risk factor actually is. It's really just what is going to make this the easiest to navigate through and require the least amount of energy.
Yeah. So, I should give an update on what we know about my health.
Yeah, that would be great.
Because the last time we did this, we explicitly were asking questions about your future, not knowing test results. So test results were nothing, nada. Negative results having anything to do with coronavirus. And also perfectly normal results on thyroid and this, that, and the other. So then what? Well, the first possibility was mono.
Mm-hmm.
That's why we put the what if. The what if Diana has mono. And that's because I have a number of antibodies from things that are not currently active, but that I've had in my system before. And mono is one of them. And so there was this, this is such an interesting process because there was the, what does my doctor say when she's just looking at lab results and trying to make sense out of them? And what does she say after we've had a conversation? So the what if with the lab results was, well, what if Diana had mono, Epstein-Barr in particular, and doesn't have it anymore, so it's not active, but it has been shown that some symptoms can go on for weeks and even months, and so, well, if that was going to be the case, what did that mean? Does that mean I'm still contagious? Does that mean blah, 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 blah? But then we talked about it, and I had mono when I was a college student. And there's still a whole what if in there because it's possible when you're on biologics and immune suppressing things that Epstein-Barr is one of the things that can reactivate, but it's rare. So it's still there, but there's nothing there. It's more of a kind of speculative, here's a way to tell a story about these symptoms, but not in a way that actually you can necessarily pin down into anything.
Mm-hmm. And if you had to describe how you're experiencing life now relative to the last time we were on, how would you describe that?
Yeah, so the fevers continue. I am less fatigued, but I also, about a week ago, instigated I am taking a 3-hour break in the middle of every day, and I'm taking a nap, and those naps are I go down and I stay down hard for a couple of hours. So I'm proactively dealing with some of that. This is not my norm, just to be clear.
We won't impugn your workaholic. We won't.
Yes.
We will hold her upon a pedestal that will be returned to one day.
But yeah, 7 weeks now,
Mm-hmm.
7.5 weeks of working close to half-time instead of my norm. Something.
Yeah.
last time we did this, we got a what if in the comments. What if it was my Fitbit and I turned to Aubrey and I said, help me interpret this one.
Well, I can offer anecdotally, and I think a lot of us can relate to this, that when I have, yes, Bearheart, mononucleosis is Epstein-Barr is one of the causes, one of the possible causes for mono. And here's what I'll say about all the EMF, the electromagnetic frequencies, is that one of the reasons why we feel so amazing when we go out in nature for 3 days is because we're away from all of the artificial EMFs that we have, because we live inside of gigantic grid boxes all the time.
Right. And one of the reasons people get headaches going into Costco is the particular kind of lighting and...
Absolutely. Unfortunately, it comes down to, the science and the available information out there is very similar to the information that's out around COVID. You have to go research sources. You have to go and evaluate not raw data, but you have to go and evaluate studies. You have to go out and you have to figure out what makes sense to you, what's right for you, given your own, I don't want to say epistemology, but your own standards for truth and, for your own criteria for what's scientifically valid and not. And then you have to go and you have to try it out yourself. Mm-hmm. And I've lived in houses where we did turn the Wi-Fi off at night. And I'll tell you what, I did sleep better. I also sleep better in domed houses. And again, is that because I know that kind of protection or that kind of, maintenance or hygiene is there? Oh, well, maybe, but then is that such a bad thing? Like when we look at the Joe Dispenza stuff and you are your own, you are the placebo. At what point does these steps that we take being effective actually make it, if it's coming from our own beliefs, if it's effective for us and it does leave us in a healthier state, is it even bad? It's such a odd space for us to be navigating as a collective human culture.
Right. So let me now extend that into thinking from the perspective of these two life experiences I have. This very recent one of a weird extended problem in my body that I don't have a solution for, and a chronic, decades-long experience. With both of them, I know that there is a non-productive what-if cycle and a useful one. And the non-productive one is I better fix it. Something is wrong and I better fix it and I have to figure it out. And in a scramble, I question everything and I try this and then I try that and then I try that and I try that, and it contributes very little to health, well-being, answers, any of that kind of stuff.
Hi Beth, hi Lisa.
And then there's a version that is similar to what you're saying. It's, gosh, there's all this information, there's all these different people's opinions, there's all these possible ways the world works, there's all these contradictions, and how do I engage them? How do I engage them not in the anxiety hamster wheel stress version of what if, but in the think in the training of a what if scenario. It's similar, but it's different.
See more.
Well, so in the training of a what if scenario, it's the whole message to the whole system is calming. It's right. It's let's start with a scenario that sounds terrible, but then imagine how we could engage that terrible scenario and survive and come out the other side. There are resources there we just don't know how to think about. Mm-hmm. That kind of engagement is, at the very least, when it's done well, it can be calming. to the psyche and the immune system. And it may even be, in my at least woo-woo thinking, that it engages the immune system in a positive way, right? It's like, here is a potential threat. What are all the resources I have? How can I organize myself in response to something that could take me out? And so, and when it came to my Fitbit, I did take it off for a few days. I didn't take it off at night because I really want to know my sleep data, but I took it off during the day with this same curiosity that you're talking about. Like, well, how does it feel? What do I want to do?
What is up with the red? We are, ooh, I like Bearheart's answer that this is sorcery. Well, we're actually stage magicians today, and I will disappear this apple through my mask at the end, so you better stay around to watch for that. But there's actually a filter that's available, and we thought we would play around with it a little today.
And yeah, at the beginning Plus, we picked this particular filter because it's both nerdy and flashy, and that's us.
I like that. I do like that. Let's see, so as you were speaking, what that brought to mind, maybe it's lost. Maybe I've lost my mind for the moment. I'm sure it'll wander back in like the cat. Yeah, I totally lost it. But I think, oh, hi, Gabby. There's now a cat behind me. But I think what I really appreciated in what you said is that well, actually not in what you said, but what it brought to mind. Sorry, guys, it is the end of a very long day of staring at spreadsheets. But what I can see is that, like in the last episode, we talked about how I am just a roll in the dirt kind of kid. And to me, like, I do relate to my immune system as a muscle, as something that requires some constant stimulation to actually stay active enough to do what I need it to do. Because we have very different immune systems. Our immune systems just operate very differently. And I do tend towards stagnating. So if I get bored or if I get too still, my body goes downhill fast. So it is really important for me to get out and do that. But part of what this allows me to do is neither one of us are under the impression that me wearing a face mask is going to keep me from contaminating the space at 100%. But what it does do is while I'm up here and I'm in the common areas, if I am beginning to actually cultivate anything, if I'm growing anything inside of me, it means that hopefully what I do end up sharing inside of the common spaces, even with good hand washing and just through breathing, hopefully you're exposed to it at a much lower level. And in that way, it's like there's still a way that you're allowing for some needed porosity inside of our container so that you can start to get some of that exposure to the outside world. But we're hopefully doing it in a responsible way with enough gap time before, if I am coming down with something, then hopefully this manages it enough for us to get a sense of, oh, hey, this is going on before you get a full viral load and a full dose of exposure.
Right. It also strikes me in this, because we live in a society that is speeding up and more is happening. Like I was talking with someone the other day who works in a health clinic, but it's not one that deals with COVID at all. It's a different kind of health setting. And they went back to work this week. And the meetings in advance were very, very thorough. Here's what we do. Here's all our protocol. Here's da-da-da-da-da. And when this person was processing with me, the shock point was the actual living of that protocol is very haphazard. Very haphazard. And the intent and the agreements, like, we don't know how to do this. We make all sorts of mistakes. We lose inattention. Like the other day when suddenly I realized it never for 1 second occurred to me that I should apply any sanitation protocol to the mail in the mailbox, because I just didn't think of it. And so the more that we allow ourselves to kind of be in a buffer where everything looks and feels the same, the harder it is to make that transition into whatever is now gonna be required or happen or things like that.
Absolutely. Yeah. So Barbara, yep. Yeah, so that is, you guys have some really great points that getting out and rolling in the dirt is a great way to expose my immune system to things. And I have been, I don't know that disciplined is the right word, but being outside and playing in the dirt. And I have a compost heap that I do play with on a regular basis. And it was interesting to go down into the city and be around cats and see how deregulated my system had become to city air and cat hair. And what I'm and even what I'm noticing is that there's, as someone that uses my hands a lot, I think I've read a few articles about the reason why we touch our face so much is so that we have a chance to smell things.
Oh, interesting.
And it was absolutely true. Like, I had the intent that I wouldn't touch my face when I was in this woman's house, and I found myself almost constantly touching my face, partly because it was like, oh my God, I'm in a new environment. I need to get to know it. And I was sleeping not in my bed, and that adds a whole other layer of vigilance, especially for women bodies. But at the same time, as beautiful of a opportunity as it is for me to get to stay in one place for weeks on end, I've never gotten to do that. So in a way, I've gotten to know this land really, really well. And I do get out and I do get exposed, and I cared for baby rabbits and buried dead things and, whatever. I'm getting plenty of exposure that way. But as far as getting to know this particular virus, or about getting to know, I don't even know that it's getting to know, but there's a way in which when we interact with the people around us, we end up sharing our microbes in a way that's actually really informative at I think at a subconscious, unconscious level. We smell it, we get to swap those microbes, and then that kind of informs our own body in a way that I don't think science really even has a way to understand yet.
Yeah.
And I've spoken to how blind I kind of feel in a lot of ways, that just reading information isn't enough. I need to go out and get out there. And as I've taken these small steps out into the world in a new way, by the end of the weekend, when I came home, I was so ready to come back home to what's mine, to what my body knows, to what it's comfortable with, in a way that I think I really appreciated, but it's also just incredibly informative as we move forward.
So listening to you, I want to make the jump briefly to social science research.
Okay.
Because I realize...
Sexy brain like that, go for it.
Yeah. I realized that the healthy state of your system is different than mine, what you have, how you deal with it, all of that, the healthy state of our bodies recognizing that and engaging that productively and even seeking it. Mm-hmm. That is the biological equivalent to the best versions of diversity, equity, and inclusion that we can imagine. Mm-hmm. That we have different life experiences, we have different identities, we've been through different, we encounter different rules in how we engage society, and that in our healthiest state, we are hungry for that difference. We make use of that difference in order to educate our systems and to become a more thriving biome, mm-hmm. societal biome. But instead what we often do, whether it's about the germs or whether it's about our social differences, is this very negative version of what if. What if you have something I don't recognize? What if you are a foreign invader? What if you mm-hmm. infect my space? And which just reinforces for me how important it is that we get out of the negative cycles of what if, mm-hmm. and into the truly curious, engaged. By asking these questions and engaging with each other, we get stronger, we get healthier, we get better.
Totally. Yeah, I can see where, in this case, I can be a great resource for, like, the more that you have faith in the way that I operate and in my insights, because you've known me now for a while, the more you can treat me like a resource that's going out into the world and coming back with, like, you know, a much narrower funnel for you for the information that you're going to eventually need to be comfortable going out. And then for me, it's, well, in one way, I'm an engineer at heart, so I deal well with constriction, with limiting reagents. And so for me, having this very clear space of needing to consider what's a vulnerability, what's a liability, it has, rather than it being an anchor, not that it hasn't, you know, not that I haven't had hard days with, oh gosh, I'm stuck inside, but rather than it being an anchor, I actually have an opportunity to use that constriction as a point of focus. Mm-hmm. What is actually important here, so that I can kind of orient all of these things that I would normally be totally comfortable with, and it focuses my attention to what are the variables that are important, and am I, you know, I can gamify it a whole lot better. Mm-hmm. Where without that, you know, I would probably be seeing, you know, possibly a dozen clients every week and just trying to track all of the differences and all of that when we're dealing with something that is so unknown. Mm-hmm. That actually doesn't work as well. So in a way, this has been a huge gift and a blessing that, number one, we get to engage in these conversations from a place of co-empowerment rather than making each other wrong or a blame mm-hmm. game. Mm-hmm. But we also get to really explore the what if and explore this entire situation from what is it you get to bring in? And okay, well then how can I do that? And I think to the extent that we have focused on both co-empowerment, but also looking at, because even you've also been very conscientious about, I'm just gonna share with everybody, she waived 1 month of rent for me, which was incredibly generous, but it was a very active step that you could take to help me feel safe and feel less stressed and feel more comfortable in the space, right?
It was an investment in our household, for sure.
Yeah, and it was hugely valuable for me to not have to worry about that for a month just to get my bearings and figure things out. So where we could argue that you may have more physical vulnerabilities, I had financial vulnerabilities, and the way that we actually really just worked together to figure out, hey, we want this house to work, we want this relationship to work on the levels we work on, and we want each of our healths to be intact. That sets up an easier set of questions for the what if and what do we need to do.
That's right.
Rather than the suspicion and the separation and the feeling like we're dominating each other or...
Yeah. So the difference between the negative version and the positive version really has to do with that foundation and the intent.
Agreed.
Yeah. And I really do love this frame of, am I working in doubt of my immune system and creating my own attack on the immune system with my fear? Or am I working with my immune system? I mean, I think the immune system is maybe the best what-ifer there is. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't always get everything right, but it's really good at asking the question.
Agreed. That's a great way to put that.
All right, maybe we end there.
I think so.
Okay.
This has been great.
Yeah, it's good. It's been too long. We've missed you.
We have. All right, here we go. Here's the magic trick. You ready? If this feels like some frat party drinking game gone wrong. Oh, I got it. Oh.
And now, what if that contaminated your net mask?
Let's not talk about that. Bye, guys.